Again, welcome Miguel Myers to the Power BI Talks. Thank you for your visit today to cover a very important aspect to any professional building data visualizations and reports. For those who still don't know him, Miguel is a magician. Some people call him the database guru. Others, the Michelangelo of reporting. He's amazing. So, Miguel, if you are ready, I can pass the presentation to you. And again, tell us more about yourself.
Thank you for having me. My name is Miguel Myers, and I work for the customer advisory team at Microsoft. I specialize entirely in report design, data visualizations, and authoring experiences in Power BI. And today we're going to talk about the strategic thinking process and how you can actually take your reports to the next level. Let me share my screen. I'm going to stop my camera a little bit. I just want everybody to see me. So I'm going to stop so my computer can work a little bit faster. And I hope everybody can see my screen now. So this is a presentation I usually give when I have this type of presentations, but today I'm going to make it a little bit different than usual. I'm going to show you some things that I do that I didn't before. I didn't show that before. So basically, the type of strategic thinking process that I follow is based on a lot of mistakes. Honestly, I did so many horrible things and I didn't make customers happy at the beginning in certain areas. So little by little, I perfection this process. As you maybe are aware, if you try to Google some type of report design in Power BI or anything, it's like very few information that is quite precise. And it's even worse if it's going to be oriented to Power BI. So this is my methodology, again, based on a lot of experience, mistakes, tears, and happiness. So I divide this process into 5 stages. And I'm not going to go into much detail right now. I'm going to make this a little bit different. But basically, the research is the most important area that nobody pays attention at all. They just hear some kind of request from their bosses or from the company, and they are just trying to put all together in one file based on certain data that they have. And that's basically all the research they do. They ask their bosses, what do you need? Or they ask their team colleagues, so what is exactly what it needs to be shown in those reports. I think it's more than that. We need to have some time to talk to business users, as you can see in the left side of this page, and then technical solution providers. The difference between these two are that the business end users will be able to understand the business, the company, the goals, the department, or whatever analytics or decisions somebody have to take the company towards the right direction, whatever goal is that. And the technician solution providers are the people that understand the data. They understand where is it stored, the nature of it, where is collected. Maybe they know Power BI, they know the limitations, they know the new capabilities that we are implementing each month. So they are always in top of the game, providing new ways to display that information and take advantage of those new capabilities, features, or visualizations that we are providing to the public. So these are the type of users. As you can see, there are quite difference between those two. And then in order to gather the business requirements, to understand exactly what do we need to put in those dashboards, like what are those business questions that they need to answer, we might need to have some kind of meetings or information gathering techniques to get everything that we need. And I'm going to show you what I do personally to get this. The reason of these meetings is to, the first glance is to get some business requirements in user research or user feedback to see what needs to be done in maybe identifying the key indicators, maybe what type of analysis we want, the actions that have to take place in those reports, goals or etc. So there are many things that we need to discover in those meetings. And then once we know that, we need to understand how are we going to solve those challenges or business questions that have to be answered. So here is where maybe we need only 10% of those business users and 90% of this technical solution providers. So finally, we need to know the design requirements. So I'm going to jump out of this so then I can show you what I do. So those two slides that I showed you, the business requirements and the technical requirements, they look more or less like this. So this is what I do. What I do is I use, in this case, Figma, but you can use any other software you want. You can even use Excel, PowerPoint, anything that you feel comfortable. The idea is to put some kind of good guidance of the outcome of those meetings where you are trying to get all those business requirements and then technical requirements. So what I do, I start with the business requirements. This is the goal, which is the company wants to increase the profits by retaining existing customers. And the main KPI to know if you are succeeding, it's the customer retention rate. You want this number to be higher. And that means that you are basically meeting your goals. Now, how can the users do their job and increase that profit by retaining those customers? Well, this is what I do after that meeting. We need to figure out what is that, and imagine that at the end of the meeting, I collected that information, and I'm putting this chart to make sure that I don't lose sight of that outcome in that meeting. So what I have identified is that to increase customer retention, which is the main objective of this goal, the user need to identify the key variables of customer behavior. So they need to understand what are those behaviors that are so important that customers stay in the company. And as well, I need to predict the future revenue. And by doing this, I will increase my retention. So that's the goal or the user requirements, because when they open that report, they need to be able to increase it. And again, by increasing that, they need to identify these two, to identify and predict. That's not gonna do it, the dashboard itself. The user needs to be able to detect that, to find patterns and play with the data or see certain pages or visualizations to make sure that they can do this task. Then the technical requirement, which is how are they going to do that, is what I do next. So for example, if I want them to identify the key variables for those customer behaviors, I might need a key influencer, which is a visualization we have that is amazing finding those key variables by itself. Or maybe I can design a cohort analysis. And to do that, as a Power BI specialist, I know that I can do it by using metrics, conditional formatting, and filtering or cross-highlighting interactions in my same page. So you can see how now, after having those meetings with my business stakeholders and technical specialists, what is the look and feel of the information that you can get out of them. So this is a project that I did, and this was the outcome. So this is how, this more or less, again, you can use an Excel file, just create a table, and it will do the same job. Any questions about this? Because again, I believe if I need to measure the importance of all the stages that I showed before, which are these 5 stages, I think research weights 60%. The rest is actually less important. Well, it is important, but it's not as heavy as the research phase, because no matter what you do in the next stages, if you're not doing this well, everybody's going to fail during their job, and the company is not going to be able to meet their goals. And they can lose money, they can lose people. There is a lot of things that can happen if it's not done right at the beginning in the research stage. So I would like everybody else to share with me if this is something you do when it's time to design reports. Are you following some or taking some time to listen the stakeholders, your bosses, your colleagues, and see exactly what needs to be done in the company in order to succeed?
Feel free to go on mute or drop the message in the chat. Fernando is saying it's starting to do, but in the past it was not pristine. Fernando.
Okay, so that's good. So that means that the company now is moving towards that direction. That's really good. Anybody else? Any experience? Maybe I have heard people that when they want to do that, they are blocked by their own people saying, "No, we don't have time for that. Just go and design whatever you can," and they find that frustrated. Is that your case, or you think that the company now is more open and maybe they never explore it, but it will be ideal for them to start doing this step in the process of designing reports? Or do you think that maybe it's not that necessary? Maybe you think you based on your experience, you can get all the information in a better way, faster way than the one that I'm sharing.
I see Daryl saying he does some of it with wireframes, but not that formal. And Scott is saying this needs to be done more in many places at work. Tom, I definitely start with the intended analytics and try to have a conversation about the goals for a given target audience.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. The wireframe, I think is not the same thing, but everybody has different techniques. Maybe what you're trying to say is that you create wireframes and you send that back to the people so they can see some kind of prototype and people can say, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for or not. Maybe that's the way that you do the research. I am not pretty sure exactly how you use wireframe for researching, but that's really interesting.
I can tell you, my mic wasn't working. I basically do a straw man position, like you said. I'll do a draft of a Power BI dashboard, and I'll send it out to somebody, and I'll wire it up. I'll draw it on I got a kit I use. It's called a wireframe kit, and they'll look at it and they'll come back to me with little tweaks and stuff like that. I could go out and get the requirements the other way, but it doesn't seem to work very well for me. They just don't know what they want. Most of the times people don't know what they want. That's my issue.
I see. Yeah, this is beautiful because I used to say the same thing that you said. I used to say, well, it's really hard because they don't even know what they want. They don't understand Power BI. But I think as a designer, big part of our job is to be a good listener. And we sometimes have to provide triggers or some ways that they can communicate what they don't know. And they actually do know what they want. Even if they don't, there are some kind of business processes and business goals that everybody needs to follow. If somebody's working in a company and they don't know that they need to increase sales, then there is an issue not with the person, but maybe the role is not clear. And that's the part that I think sometimes as designers, we always go with that one of they don't know what they want. If we make the right questions at the time when we gather these people, then they will give us more information that we will expect. Sometimes even by us asking a question and then stay quiet, they will fill up that time or that silence with more and more information. You have no idea how people crave to say things that they are happy with or not happy with.
I think what I do though is it gives them at least the conversation gets going, because what they'll do is they'll look at it and then they'll start saying, I don't like this, but I like that. And now they're actually responding now to something where they had nothing before. That's where I see it. I have a different bunch of people. I have a bunch of old-fashioned construction people I work with. So they're really different in some cases than say a technology company. It's quite old-fashioned in some cases.
Totally. Well, I used to work in the same way that you do, and there's nothing wrong. It works in certain level. I will encourage you to explore a little bit more and more, or get stronger in the fact that maybe you need to have a meeting with certain people and get information out of maybe a workshop, or it can be that we have many techniques in order to get really good feedback. But you'll see a huge difference once you get that in a structured way, and then you design your wireframes around that plan or that information that they all get you. You'll see a big difference. I didn't notice it at the beginning, but once I move into this process, I saw it like dramatically. But again, I'm gonna show you this. So anybody else have a experience like this around the research stage?
There are some comments in the chat. Scott is saying framing the question is critical to draw information from the business. Dajana is saying, do you follow preset questions for your research, or does everything depend on the type of project?
Well, it depends the type of personas and the time that they have. If I need to design an high executive report, I know that people won't have a lot of time. So going into questionnaire, maybe I am not going to get as much information as I would love, but then I will use other techniques. I will maybe I will try to get some kind of pins or like yellow pages where the executives can just drag and drop wherever they feel that meets their goals, or I'll make something more dynamic, something that in short time I'll get more information. But if I have more time, people open agendas and maybe willingness to get all together in certain time, then I'll go with maybe questionnaires. I'll go with like a more dynamic brainstorming meeting, etc. It all depends. In my opinion, it all depends the type of personas they have in their schedule. Then the project is going to be the same. Gathering that information, no matter what is the project, is basically the same thing. At the end, my goal is to get the type of file that I just showed, that type of diagram. This is my goal. And the reason of that is because when I finish the gathering and get that diagram done, I want to send it back to the personas, to the users. And I want them to review all that, and they should agree that this is actually representing their needs and the business goals that they need to work with. If there is if I just go along with whatever I get from them and they cannot see graphically what I gathered, I might run an issue of not gathering or collecting the information correctly. So that's why I go back and forwards with them once I finish. As soon as I get that, I go into the define stage. And is it somebody else asking about or commenting about the research, or can I continue with the define?
Fernando is saying that he has another problem that he's experienced is that they don't know what KPIs to follow, especially in smaller companies.
Well, it all depends the type of business. Again, if this is about retail, well, there are many general KPIs that retail follows. Or in my case, the one that I showed, I'm gonna go back to because that happened as well with me in this project. So it's a good comment. So this is for customer retention, and the company was small, brand new in this business, and they were really excited to start doing it in the right way. But they didn't know, they knew the goals, but know the KPIs. So when they gave me this increased profit by retaining existing customers in the meeting, I figured it out that by researching here and there, customer retention rate is the best KPI that can help them with that. And then I came out with another KPIs that are really popular in customer retention. So if they don't know what KPIs they need to use in order to measure success, my suggestion is, number one, go back to your data set, the data set that you have available to design your report, and then search or Google or use Bing or any other website where you can just see, okay, this is customer retention. I want to see all customer retention KPIs or retail KPIs, and then document yourself and see, okay, so these are the most popular. Let me see my data. Oh yeah, I have enough information in my data set to get this KPI. That's how I do it. That's how I did in this case, because they didn't know neither the KPIs, but their data set was capable to give me right away these KPIs, all these ones that you're seeing here, the ARPU, MRR, total customers, so active customers, new customers, recovered customers, they had the data. I will suggest if you can do that. In my system, I don't know if somebody else have another idea or experience of how they do that once somebody knows their goals, their business requirements, but they don't know the KPIs.
There are no more questions.
Okay, so I'll go back into the next stage. So define. This is just more like planning. We need to plan things with the information we had. We need to understand who are the personas that we are designing this report for. And a way, this is a very popular way for graphic designers, UI, UX specialists. They design these cards where they put some kind of picture that represents a group of users or personas, and then they put a role, like some characteristics, user stories, really important. So then you need to know what are going to be the actions that they will take in that report. That is going to help you to understand the type of layout, not entirely, but at least it will give you an idea. Because if this is an executive who is your main persona, then you won't like to design an informative layout, like something for people that they have no idea how to read analytics, or they have no idea the business and they just need to know certain information, or very analytical. You don't want an executive to dip into the data to find things that are important for them. You want to show them everything right away because they don't have enough time to look into the data and take decisions. So there are specific tricks and tips to design executive layouts. The issue is if you lose track of that persona, you might start designing something that is not quite good for them. And you can have one persona or multiple personas. So that's why it's quite important to always keep that. A good technique is to create these cards and just keep an eye on them so then you don't lose track. The other planning part of designing report that I do all the time is to define the information architecture. That is, if this is about retail or customer retention or sales, marketing, whatever, you need to know how you're going to break down that information based on the data set you have, because sometimes you have a lot of detail, and then you know that there are opportunities to break that information into multiple sections, but you need to organize it really well. So then each page doesn't look or feel too busy, or and if you do this as well, you reduce the noise that can happen if you don't. So this is an example, really graphical. So here is I want people to get into a landing page and then go into sales overview. However, I allowed executives to go directly from the landing page to my executive view. And they can, from here, if they want to see more, they can go into the sales overview. And from there, they can navigate through different areas of my data. So you see sales pipeline is going to be inside of the sales overview. And from here, they can see sales pipeline by manager or by product. And then they can go, if it's by manager, they can see each order. Or if they go by product, they can see the inventory or market basket. So you can see now everything is organized. And that's what I want to do in order to understand how many pages I'm going to design in my report. inside of each page or across multiple pages, we need to define as well the user flow. So we need to know if this executive or this specialist or sales vendor or whoever that is going to use my dashboard, what is going to be his or her journey. So that person is going to open the report, and maybe they'll see something there happening, and I need to make sure that that flow is really well defined, because at the end, the UI and UX, the interface and experience in the user is going to start changing things around. This is basically what is going to guide me at the time when I design the report. Because if I see that there are many actions that have to take place, I need to know how I'm going to place them in that page and how I'm going to make those clicks and those findings really easy and intuitive to those users, so then they can be more productive and increase whatever business goals they have to increase or decrease, because sometimes we want to decrease complaints or whatever, or whatever goal it is, I want them to do it fast, to feel productive, to feel engaged. I want the report to speak loud of, here, come here and do this, or there is a problem, please take an action. I want the dashboard to guide them. I don't want the users to find things. I want the dashboard to let them know where they are so that they can right away act upon it. So that's why defining the user flow with a really good planning at the end is going to determine dramatically how the report looks and feel. Any questions in this area? Is everybody like familiar of these three areas? I believe almost nobody do the personas, the information architecture, and the user flow. Is somebody have experience in these areas? Is there other techniques that you use in order to nail these three stages or three areas in this stage?
Fernando is saying that this is awesome so far.
Oh, thank you.
And also he wants to see what do you have to say about the page navigation button.
Oh, well, the page navigation button is going to come into the next stage. But for example, in this one, in the user flow, maybe part of your user flow is here, like somebody opens the report and then they want to navigate from page to page. Then what I will do is in here, I will put in this like a, I'll put in this circle or oval here, I'll put a navigation button, because now I know that this is the action and this is the feature that the visual or element that I will use to nail this action. On top of each of these boxes, I usually put the capability or feature. So for example, in your case, you're saying that the navigation button. So I'll put here the button, and up here, I'll put the bookmark, because the bookmark is going to be the one making the navigation. So that's a very common thing that I do in my user flows, because I always want them to navigate. Sometimes, depending the requirements, remember, we need to know the requirements. Sometimes the requirement is, I don't want navigation in the page. I want to use the navigation that Power BI gives by default. So then I need to remove that user flow and make sure that it's always in the left side of the panel that we give users as default panel for navigation. It all depends. Don't take those. Well, I don't take those decisions unless the user is happy with that. If I want to improve performance, for example, if I go back a little bit into the technical requirements. So imagine that in my technical requirements, the project has a lot of issue because we have so many elements in that page and they need to see a lot of information somehow. And performance, it's decreasing because so many visuals and elements in each page. If that is the big issue and they are not happy with it, I won't put any navigation button, even though that is one single button, but I will remove as many elements as possible, and I will use the navigation panel instead. So that's another reason maybe I will contemplate to remove it or maybe use it. It really all depends on the requirements. Going back to that huge stage that I think has a lot of heaviness. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, he's saying that this approach also helps him define the project's approach and limit it to the agreements.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else with the experience defining or planning your report design? It can be this way, or it can be any other way where it's time for you to put everything in paper before even you do it in Power BI, maybe sending emails. How do you do it? How do you plan when you have to design those reports? And there is no wrong answer.
You have a comment from Tom. He's saying, I definitely stress personas and use cases. I'm not quite as intentional about my documentation as what you're presenting here. It's a good idea to shoot for, however.
Oh yeah, stressing users is amazing when you do it like gently, because sometimes they get frustrated, but it's really good. You get a lot of feedback when you do that. And yeah, it's quite cool. Any other feedback? Otherwise, I can jump into the big topic here, which is time to design the report. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, things that I do, and I think things that I avoid. So then you can learn from me those techniques. Again, please, this is my experience. This is my technique. You feel free to adapt in your case, to transform it, to enhance it, or ignore it if it doesn't work for you and your company.
So you have one last comment from Fernando. He's saying he's using meeting minutes originally.
Say again?
He's using meeting minutes.
Okay, so we have only 20 minutes to finish this. All right, so let me go into the sketch section. This sketch section is now time to design those low definition reports. And you need to define where's gonna be where's gonna be your header, your navigation, if footer, if you wanna have footers, or maybe a slicer areas if you want to have slicers, etc. So there is a lot of things that you need to decide and sketch, and the rest is going to be the visualization area. It's so important that you have to be consistent, because then you need to reuse those patterns around different wireframes, because each page is going to have its own uniqueness and analysis that have to take in place. And maybe that layout will play sometimes against you, but you need to find ways to reuse those patterns to make sure that that navigation is always consistent. You don't want people to retrain their brains on how to filter information or navigate from page to page. You want them to always look places in the same place, look for things in the same place. So then it's a very easy experience for them when they research, when they look at their data, or when they navigate through different pages. You can do these wireframes really quickly in any software. I use Figma. Sometimes I use PowerPoint. This is a PowerPoint low definition design. So everything you see here is basically its shapes and lines, visuals. So nothing that everybody can really put together this type of ideas and then showcase them to your audience, just like it was mentioned before. Some people do this a lot, and then people will come back to you saying, can you put those slicers in other place? Or maybe this fifth KPI is not that important. Maybe put it in another page. So they're going to give you some good feedback. Something important when you do this low definition prototypes is that you need to define the spacing and the padding in your report. So I'm going to talk right now about that wireframes and the layout. So this is a report that I designed, and I want to show you. I'm still designing it, so this is a work in progress. So I want to show you what I mean when I'm talking about margin. So this is the margin area that is part of my layout, which is this first, this one. So I need to define the margin as well, where is going to be my margin. And this is an area that I don't want to touch at all. I shouldn't, not even a little, to invade that space. Then I need to know the spacing between elements. They have to be equal. If I say this is going to be 8 pixels, well, eight pixels is going to be the horizontal spacing and the vertical spacing, no matter what. I don't want things to be misaligned. I don't want things like this a little bit less than the other one. And trust me, if you go back, I went back to my reports in the past and I saw this mistake all the time and I started fixing it. So if you go back to your reports and are strict, like really strict and saying, okay, if I decide 10 pixels, let me see if I did the same thing across all spacings between the visuals, you'll find out that most people don't actually do that. And you have no idea how much impact that consistency between space will bring into your report. It's going to take it to the next level. So please take time to do it precisely and well. Finally, there is margins inside of each container. So this card has this margin and is the same one as this one, the same one as the navigation panel, and same one as the header. So nothing should overpass that area. If I put a button, I don't want the button to be below this orange space. So that's why we have, I use shapes, but we have many other ways that you can do it. And you should be able to decide those rules right in your low definition mockup. So when you do this, decide where's going to be your margin, your spacing, and your margin inside of these containers. Any questions about these tips on spacing, margin, and padding?
Nothing in the chat so far.
No, nothing. Okay, so I'm gonna jump.
Can I ask a question? On the thing
please.
that you're showing, if you had more information to be shown, would you have a second page or would you put a scroll bar on it?
Oh, it all depends. There are not good practices or bad practices. It all depends the requirements again. If the users have to scroll and there's no need for them to interact, then I'll use the scroll. If they need to highly interact with the visuals to find things, patterns, or dig into visualizations, then scrolling is going to be terrible because you scroll down and you click on a visual, and then the other ones that are now cross-filtering are not visible. So the user have to scroll up and down to interact with the page. It's really about the user feedback and the business requirement, what will tell me which is the best layout, if it's a long page or a regular page, which is this case. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect. Yeah, so again, I am not gonna give, I will never say this is a bad practice. Well, sometimes I will say that, but there are no golden rules in here with certain exceptions. Everything is flexible, and who determine the way that you move in your design are the users. You have to always work around them. So let me move to the next one. So that's a way that I do it. When I say reuse patterns, I want to show you what I mean. So this is a presentation that was designed just to showcase Power BI and digging into certain information. But this is not very, how can I say? This is not a real business design. This is more for showing up. It's like somebody wants to really showcase something and looks to look beautiful. So this is more like imagine this is PowerPoint in steroids. So the idea here was to design the layout. I have as well my margin, but I play with certain things and I broke those rules, as you can see here. Instead having this area inside of my container, it's outside. It's now like in front of the information that looks below or behind. So there is some kind of hierarchy. You can see as well that my slicers, everything that controls this section is in this white box that is quite like floating. And here I can control the year. And over here I can control the continents. So this is what I did. Now, how can I reuse this pattern in the next pages so then users don't need to retrain their brains and we can design those wireframes that I was explaining before. So this is basically this area. So that's what I'm talking about. Well, in the second page, here's a slicer. I can select a different continent, and now it's going to highlight that continent. You see that? I can select one single country. And it's showing as well that the continent that it belongs. And I believe there is something wrong, but I usually used to highlight the country in black, but I need to check it out. So you can see that the slicer is in here already. It's following the same principle than the other one, in a box with this shadow, and it's like on top, like it's on top of the main page, which is in the background. Then there is another control down here, which it can play the visual. So this is another control. And did you see what I did? It's the same shape with the same shadow, like what I have in the other side, where I can change the map based on the year that I select. Both are controllers, and I'm respecting and reusing the same pattern that I have in my main design. So I'm going to go to the next one, which is going to be, I believe, key influencers. So in the key influencers, I did the same. So in the key influencers, you can decide if you want to decrease it or increase. And this is a controller. I want to control what is here. So then I design the background, the same shape. All of this is following the same pattern. And this is the magic of wireframing. It's not about many pages and just putting all visuals. No, if you're designing to put your navigation, if you want to change from page to page, I will expect to see the same in every single page in the same place. If I want to change things and filter, I expect the same. I don't want people to now move to the right side with the slicer and then to here and then sometimes it looks gray and another ones it looks white. Some pages is too huge, the size of the text, and another one's too small. Everything out of place and all over the place as well. That's the type of things that you should avoid. And the only way that you can do it right is if you plan it in a mock-up, if you sketch it in any other platform. Power BI can be included. You can design all this in Power BI. I usually try to work faster, and I do it in Figma or PowerPoint. Then we have the data visualization side. How long do we have? Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
We're good? Okay. So the data visualization is as important as the wireframing, because if you do everything right, if you design it well, the background and all those patterns that I was explaining, but then you use the wrong visualization, the users are going to feel frustrated because they won't get the answer they need with the information that you're delivering. So I have some steps that I follow when I have to visualize data, and that is understanding the primary dimension. That's I'm doing this wrong. So that's basically the x-axis for tables or Cartesians, and for pie charts, tree maps is the main dimension that you use to break the information into different buckets. So that's your primary dimensions. You really need to to identify. You need to identify, well, what is that dimension? And then you need to know if that's text, a number, date, or time. Then you need to identify what that primary dimension is working as a nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. And then after you know that, then you need to know who is your audience. Because if this is for an executive, you're not gonna come up with a really high analytical visual that not even myself can read properly. You want to find really basic visuals that do their job quite faster. But if you want to show correlationships or really interesting analytical stories, then you don't want to go with the basics. Maybe your user is going to be a data scientist that is really passionate about their job, and they want to really dig into the information, and you need to give them the best visualizations that they can do their job. So you need to know who is your audience again, and the things that they need to do, and then how efficient is for that visualizations to answer the question. So if you have a column chart and then the question is, what is the highest sales by region, you have to put that visual. And if you're capable to say which one is the number 3, and it takes you less than a second, then that's the right visual. If it takes you longer, explore another visual that maybe can do it better, or change some of the properties in that visual so then it can highlight the answer that you're looking for. How does that look? That, like, you need to know some good practices, bad practices in data visualization. I'm going back to my Figma, and this is what I want to show you. So here is, I hope that everybody can see right. I'm trying to make this one look a little bit larger, so it's easy for you to distinguish. So here is a bad and good practice. If you have this type of data and it's sorted in this way, then it's considered a bad practice. It's encouraged to do it in this other way, to organize it from the largest to the lowest. The way that I do this is because each of these rules follows certain principles, which I explained before. You need to know the data type. So we can see that the data type is text. So this is the text, a number, or this is date. Then what type of, so where is the measurement scale that primary dimension is using? So this is nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. So it's nominal. So this is a nominal data type. And then what type of analysis, this type of rule where I need to sort things from the largest to the lowest are gonna get into that bucket. So I know that this is diversion, and this is correlationship, this is ranking, this is distribution, change over time, magnitude, this is part of a whole, this is spatial, flow, and narrative. So you can see the ones that actually are good to follow this rule, to sort them in this way. If I have text, nominal, and then another one here, it won't meet that rule. It's going to go against that rule. For example, down here, where we sort things from the largest to the lowest, but the problem is that now this is a bad practice because it doesn't follow the same. This is it's sharing the same text, but the measurement scale is not nominal, it's interval, and that changes the rule. So what I'm trying to show you here is those rules are not they are not like forever, like, or for everything. It all depends the 3 parameters that I showed you in the presentation that will determine the type of principle that, or rule, or good practice that you need to approach. So if you do it right, you're going to enhance your report. You're going to make it look nicer. It's going to be much easier to read, and people are going to get more and more productive because they're going to be able to do their job and take decisions right away. This is not all of it. You need to know as well some of the elements in each visualization. When I'm talking about elements, I'm referring to legend, titles, subtitles, axis titles, and all the stuff, grid lines, all of that. And this is something that I found really interesting in the website, where it says, don't do this. Sometimes we go and research about good practices, bad practices, and we find these websites where it says, well, don't do this. This is a bad practice, and this is a better way to do it. So they are saying, There's a lot of information and all this legend, and this arrangement is wrong. And they are right, but what they are not telling you is that the issue here is not how they are distributing this data or using this visualization. The visualization, in my opinion, it's right, but are the elements in the visual that were used wrong? Because sometimes we are lacking of the knowledge of how to use legends, when to use hierarchy axis, when to use grid lines, etc. So you need to take some time, because if you get into a website like this, you can get confused or misleading towards another direction that in other places will do actually a good practice to do what you see here. They are saying that it's better way to do it in this. I agree entirely. That I disagree in one single thing, I'll let you know. So this is a better way. And I want to show you, I took the time to replicate what they had here, but then I used this other way where I remove the legend, I use the hierarchy axis and separate them. So now the insights for both of these visuals are good practices. They are both telling you different stories. And these two visuals are designed to solve different business challenges or questions. Even though they share the same type of axis, the same dimensions, the same secondary axis and the values, it's easy to find patterns or find stories in this one that are different in the other one. The comparison can be quite different as well. Both are good for comparison, but in different ways. And if I want to take this to the next level, I'll apply one of the principles that I showed before, which is a good practice, and that is sorting things from the highest to the lowest, which they didn't do. In here, they sort them by who knows what, because it's not even alphabetically. And I think this is good, but it will be even better if they can see that apples have a lot of sales or tons of produce, and then bananas come next, and then at the end is oranges, the one that has the lowest. And we can see here each month. I believe this is following that principle that I showed before. And here's where, only because we're using hierarchy levels, now we have text, and at the same time we have nominal and interval. Nominal are apples, bananas, and oranges, which we can sort them by from the highest to the lowest. And then we have interval, which we have to sort them by the order of the months or the years or weekdays or whatever. So I cannot sort these ones from the highest to the lowest because this is an interval. So this is a great example of how visualizations are dynamic and how understanding the data type, the measurement scale, and the analysis that you want to apply in this visualization will help you right away to choose the right approach in the way that you manage that visual and how you can enhance the elements in the report. So then you get this visual instead something like this. Any questions about that part?
No questions in the chat. I think this is amazing. This is a great example.
Yeah, and that's why in the internet there is a lot of good information. When they take us by surprise and we don't understand those principles and the elements in each visual, it happened to me many times where I trust a website. I didn't read enough about the deepest levels of visualizations or the nature and components that they have. And then I was just putting a lot of bad practices, and it's normal. We just need to take some time to really understand it and apply it in practice. So here is something I want to show you. I'm going to make this one a little bit larger. So it's only one section that I want you to focus on, which is this. So here's what I was talking about. We have this visual that contains the data of emissions. We can see that by month. It's increasing, decreasing, and we have 2 years. The part of my business requirements was to as well compare this year by year. So then what I did in my interface was to create this type of button, and now they can see year by year comparison. And now they can see that the 2020 period, it's in here, which is the same period that is selected in 2020. But this is not the year, this is just the period. When they turn this off, they can see that the period that I'm talking about, 2020, takes from October of 2019 to September of 2020. So you can see the difference. Here I can see that period itself, month by month, and here I can see that period compared to all years, if that makes sense. So then I can break this into emissions by scope. So I want to see the scope 1 for emissions, scope 2, and scope 3. And again, I'm highlighting the year what I selected in here. So that's the year. So I'm highlighting that year. That's another practice of color usage. We have many ways to use colors, and this is one way. And then if I turn this off, what do you think is going to happen?
I'm sorry. You have a question from Scott. He's saying the table and with text numeric data, nominal, ordinal, is that available somewhere for future reference, or will this PPTX be available?
Yeah, I'll share the PowerPoint presentation so then you can have it. Yeah. So if I turn off this switch, now I'm gonna see the period that I selected month by month. Same experience then when I go to emissions, I can see both month by month. And if I go to emissions by scope, I can see the same thing, but now break down by scopes. And this is the navigation. I'm reusing some patterns. I'm making sure that the visual has different ways to do. So it's the same visual. This is what I want to show you. It's the same visual, but depending how you use and how you create the elements or break down this information, then you can really change the story you want to tell. You can allow users to take better decisions depending what they see, and you can solve the questions, the business questions that they need to solve. Same thing here, emissions by scope. This is a line chart, so now we can see the comparison next to each other, or I can turn this off, and now we can see the comparison next to each other year by year. This is a great example of how data visualizations are really dynamic. There is no just one single column chart, and column charts always look the same. That's not true. I can make a column chart look completely different and tell you different stories depending my data type, the measurement scale, and the type of analysis I want to show. So just if you, and it's okay, it's a really huge topic that I am not even know. I believe all I know is like maybe 20%, and there is so much more that I need to start still learning. If you find yourself that you maybe are not too keen, or after this conversation I'm showing you, that we are having, you find yourself that maybe this is not something that you were aware that you should know, it's a huge opportunity for you to know now, being aware that maybe it's time to research more about it and practice these type of techniques. This is my technique, but maybe other places you can find a better way to find the right visualizations and how you can learn about them.
Miguel, if you go to emissions by scope, are those small multiples?
These are, I believe they are small multiples because the legend, yes, they are.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, because this is small multiples, and this one, is this one? Yeah, no, this one. And this one is a hierarchy level. So they look quite similar because there is some kind of separation between here, but they are not. One is the small multiples. That's another area that I don't think I have time to talk about, but in order to be a really good report designer, everything that I just showed you, you need to know. So I'll I'll separate this in 3 buckets. Number 1, you need to know about design process. So you have to know about listening users, gathering informations, planning, sketching. That's part of the design. That's graphic design, that's UI, UX. You have to perfection that area or highly being involved into that segment. Then the second one is data visualizations. No matter if it's in well, whatever platform you want to use, even Excel, you need to know how to use those visuals in the way that I just explained. Is my way, but you need to know the analysis types. You need to know the elements that they have inside of each visual, the purpose of these visuals, and how flexible they can be. That's the second area. The third area that you need to be really good is Power BI. You need to know, all right, if I want to create this type of comparison, what type of tools do I have in Power BI to do this right? And just like you noticed, because you know that we have that functionality, this is made with small multiples. If you don't know that, if you don't know even what is small multiples and how I can activate that option in Power BI, you will miss a huge opportunity to display the information in the way that you can see it here. And this is just one option. There are many ways that small multiples can be used that if you know how to use it, you can take advantage of it. So if you can invest time in those 3 areas, you're going to get better and better designing reports. If your goal is to be a great report designer.
There is a great consideration. I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but do you follow any rule of thumb for colors when using colors, either if the company has branding colors or not? Is there a rule of thumb that you follow?
There are many rules in the colors section, and I think it will take me hours to talk about that. Let me see. So for colors, the only thing that I can tell you is we have the branding colors, which can be used for backgrounds, text, elements, visuals. And the same thing can be if you want to design your own custom palette, or if you need to follow accessibility. So if you want to be 100% accessible, some colors you won't be able to use them together, or you have to create some separations or something that won't allow users to use colors as indicator. This is a good example because when I designed this report, it was when I was gathering the design requirements. One of the design requirements was I want people with color blindness to see this, and there are many spectrums of color blindness. There are people that cannot see a single color. They all they see is grays, white, and black. So what I did in all these pages is, if you can see, I'm gonna go here. So you can see that even if I don't see that this is light blue, dark blue, at least the shape at the end of the visual is telling me, well, what is it? So I see a triangle, and that's scope 3. I see a square, well, it's 2. I see a circle, well, it's 1. That means that I'm trying to include good practices that exclude, like, I can still use in color just to make things look beautiful, but it's not going to be my primary goal to use the color. It's going to be more like, how can I create shapes? If I want them to compare things between one against each other, I cannot use any visual that's stacked or cluster the column, because now they need to differentiate the 3 columns that are together or the 3 columns that are stuck on top of each other, and that's going to be hard for them to really distinguish. Instead, I want to divide them so then they can see the size variations between these 3. So everything is now, the color again is not my primary resource. It's more the other elements around, and color is just like an accent thing that I will use to separate some indicators just for the sake of beauty. If I have, like, in my overview, you can see that I have my emissions here, emissions, revenue intensity, and renewable energy. You can see like this line, blue, green, and purple. You can see the table follows the same pattern. And then here, if I select different tabs, now because I'm talking about revenue intensity score, everything is green. If I talk about renewable energy, everything is going to be purple. So it's aligned. However, if somebody's incapable to see colors, it won't stop them to read the same visualization because the colors, if that makes sense. So just to answer your question, it's a really hard topic. It all depends on the requirements. And I'm sorry, I'm saying this over and over again. Trust me, those requirements, that's why I was saying at the beginning, are critical. You cannot take decisions, not even colors, when you don't know those requirements and they are not put into a place that are clear and precise.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good point. Yeah, I found out also that the people that have some color blindness or anything, sometimes they don't tell you, and they just look at the dashboards or the reports, and sometimes they don't distinguish things, and it's because of the colors that we don't have something else to point to what we want them to focus on, right? And then when we create those, like the shapes that you said, then they say, oh, okay. But if
now,
you don't
now I
have
understand. Yes.
consideration,
Yeah. Yeah, but that's one thing. I can talk about the branding as well. I remember working for a company. I don't have that report open right now, but I was working for a company. Well, I was working for Microsoft, but the customer came here with us and say, please help us to design this. And we have issues with designing. Can you give us a good practice? And the branding, the color of that branding was red. And they told me use red everywhere because that's part of our branding. And we want to showcase everybody about that this belongs to us, etc. And I was like, all right, red everywhere. And I see that this is about production and I need to show lows and highs. How can I do it to show lows when the red is the good thing? So now you need to come into another topic of color usage. And when somebody sees the color red in the report, the color red needs to give them some kind of friendly welcome. It needs to guide them. It needs to bring the values of the company, and that's how that's how we do it as designers to bring that language or that graphical communication in place inside of the report, so then it doesn't have conflict with the analytics side. That's complete. As you can see, there are challenges when we work on accessibility. There are challenges when we work with branding, and can be as well challenges when we work with custom palettes, when we decide the colors that we want to use. And they are treated in different ways. It's just matter of expertise and practice when you nailed it. And most importantly, their requirements. They will tell you exactly how to approach things.
what a great topic.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions? So I think it's time just to go to Q&A.
Yes.
I'm gonna stop my camera, and please, everybody, it's time to say everything you feel. I know this is many people are not 100% agree with these techniques, and that's good. It's a very brand new area, so it's amazing when we can discuss and go against each other because we all learn from this. So please, there are no bad answers here or questions, nothing.
Come on, questions.
It's just,
Considerations.
Miguel, thank you very much. This is the last step that the final user sees, and it's so extremely important.
I have
Yes.
a question. Do you use the Power BI templates? There's a extension like PBIT, and how do you use that when it comes to branding? Do you have like create a wireframe and then you create a template file? Do you use that at all?
Yes, I use it. When customers want to speed up their design process, you need to put together like some kind of manual explaining detail by detail. you need to work on the JSON file. Who, like, for the people that don't know what is a JSON file, is like a file that manages every single formatting pane or formatting option in Power BI. So if you put together a visual, so the JSON file will say to the visual, change the color of the title, this color, this font, this size, or how wide is going to be the column, if I want to see the axis or not. So you will command, or you will manage every single property in the entire report when you manage the JSON. So the JSON and the template comes together. Everything needs to be explained it detail by detail in a manual, so then users can understand how you put together those wireframes, those templates, and they can use them properly. There are many areas where if you don't do it right, they can get worse results if they do everything from scratch. So it's a really powerful tool if you want to speed the process of design, report this design if it's done well. Otherwise, it can be really annoying. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I had a second part. What about using too many slicers? We have reports that people use like 15 slicers at the top, and there's like 15 drop-down menus. Do you use like where you can show and hide with bookmarks? Do you do like slicer panels? Anything like that to like have more real estate on the screen?
Yeah, I use that. I can expand and collapse the slicers when there are so many. However, how can I say this so it doesn't repeat again and again? But you need to know the requirements, because if you need the users to understand the options that they are clicking, and then you collapse all those slicers, they will lose sight of what it was selected. So if I select the country Colombia or Italy, then I collapse that slicer, then I will know exactly what I'm selecting. That's one issue. The second issue is, imagine if I need to interact with my data and I need to select the slicers again and again, depending the business questions that I want to answer. So I need to expand and collapse that thing so many times to make the report change. And that's going to be a horrible experience for the users. They are going to find them overwhelming and tedious. However, the same rule can apply the other way. Sometimes that's the best way to do it, but it all depends the type of navigation and layout that you apply. You can highlight certain areas to encourage users to expand and collapse it. Maybe those 15 slicers you have are one single clicking options, like maybe I am a director of certain area and I'm just focusing on certain team, and I just go there, select everything that is interesting to me, collapse it, and I know that I will never go back to that slicer anymore because it's already predefined. Then it is right. It all depends. It's hard to tell without requirements.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I won't give an answer that is not going to be flexible. I'll always say yes or no, depending the situation. It's like people ask me if a pie chart is bad or not, and I will say the same thing. A painter cannot say that black or magenta is a bad color. We use everything because with all colors we can do wonders. It all depends how you use those colors.
It depends. It's always the answer.
Yeah, and depends around users and business requirements. If you know that, you'll take the right decisions. And this is not about making a report beautiful. This is about money. This is about jobs. This is about people sanity, because you want to make them happy when they work. You want them to be productive. You want them to feel motivated. And you can do this with a good dashboard. Imagine if you have this Mac or this Windows laptop and everything is like the keyword, it's everywhere. The applications are so difficult to find, so you won't feel like desire to use that computer. You want everything to be easy and friendly, That's exactly what report design is all about. It's not about making a report look beautiful. That was one of the things that I used to hate in my job at the beginning, because all people were asking is, can you make this beautiful? And I was like, no, I can make you more productive. If you want that, I can help you. If you just want me to put some colors, I can do that, but that's not gonna be my main role. It all depends if you want to use that part of my talent or just waste my talent with making that something look colorful. So what I'm trying to say, to make this short, is don't see report design as a graphic design effort to just beautify things. It's to improve your productivity, it's to improve the company, it's to make people happy, and it's for you as well to feel proud of the work that you do and evolve this area that has not much information out there.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen users wanting to use visuals that were more complex just because they look good, right? And sometimes those are too complex for the audience, let's say. They wouldn't understand the message. And so it's like, okay, so you want the report to look smart, but what is the priority, right?
That's correct. And that's another talent that as report designers we have to have. Sometimes we have to be very careful how we communicate those things. If we are too rude and say, look, this is not good, everything you're saying is wrong, you can sometimes find the right words. And I am not a native English speaker, but I do my best to always encourage people to make them feel like they actually had the idea and not myself, and then apply that. So you need to use some psychology at the time when you gather requirements and when you have to introduce some good practices when people are resistant to the change. Psychology is the other area that you have to perfection.
Yeah. Tom is saying that also this is culturally based, read good in many non-Western cultures. Oh, what a good point.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So anything to say, any questions, any experience to share, any struggling? Are you still there? I see, Ray.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful, Miguel.
Well, I'm happy to share the knowledge, and I believe in a year, another year, I'm gonna change some things, and maybe you can invite me back to update my techniques. This is what I have so far, and if my manager will he will tell you that I am so dynamic, and I always change, I always improve. So what I'm saying is just what I have so far, guys. It's your responsibility to keep practicing, to document yourself, and don't stop learning.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. And of course, we'll be happy to have you back. And before we forget, can you share your links to your websites and the YouTube channel so people know where to find more?
Of course, I'm gonna just paste the YouTube channel. I am not very active right now for a really good reason, but I will go back and start producing more content that you're gonna find really, really good. Not only in this YouTube channel, but in a website that I'm putting together. But so far, this is a good area where you can find good practices, and I hope that you enjoy it.
Yeah, I see really good comments in the chat. A lot of thank yous.
Everybody's welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, again, I'm gonna stop the recording. But before that, I want to say thanks again, Miguel, and thanks everyone for attending this session.